Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, Precious Pack, and welcome back once more to VEGA Conflict. Let's go ahead and let's have a look at the Amarok, and we'll more or less talk about it as we normally do. So right off the bat, I paired it with Richard Gowd with the intention of just boosting the weapon range and stuff like that a little bit. Well, not the weapon range, but the projectile range. Second, fit it with mostly low-level light stuff. Haven't had a chance to refit it with Thunder Thrusters yet. But so far the first impressions have been fairly... well, I'll save that for the fights. Let's go ahead and let's run over the stats for the blueprint variant instead of pre-built, well, prepared. So, 2 hours repair time, which is standard for all of Tier 8. Effective range, same as all other Titans. Health, 18,000. Don't mind me and my tired mind yet again. Maximum mass, yada yada yada. Speed, 650 meters per second. Rotation, 63 degrees per second. Strafe, 550. And in-sector speed, 600 astronomical units per hour. And the first of its 2 overdrives is Congest, and Congest is each enemy in the Amarok's firing arc increases the amount of weapon jamming applied to each enemy, decreasing enemy offensive capabilities for 4 seconds. It's a stacking overdrive, and it stacks up to 3 times, and at Mark 1 it is preset to 30 when you get 3 targets. And the other one is Bloodthirst. When it does 750 health damage, it starts to ramp up the damage, and it can stack up to 5 times, so it gives it a 30% damage boost. Let's go ahead and let's take a look at it at Elite. Congest for 4 seconds. It is a 90% charge disruption. Let's quickly jump back to... actually, let's jump to a Wraith, because I want to see what an Elite Wraith was. Here one is. What was its culling? It was 100%. So the Wraith is better, and all you have to do is just destroy a single enemy ship's defenses, and it'll activate. And again, it's just like the other one, except for it also ramps up its ablative regeneration. So in this regard... oh, and the weapon speed is increased. So in this regard, the Wraith is actually better at disrupting the enemies at Elite over the Amarok, which, as we just saw, is, well, it requires 3 targets to be able to get that 90, and I mean, the Wraith, it gets that 100 just by taking off an enemy's defenses, and that isn't too hard to do. And what else? 4 weapon slots, has 5 armor slots. Alright, so it gets an additional ablative armor slot. It gets an additional resistance slot, and I think it actually starts with 1, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, it starts with 1. So it gets an additional 1, sector speed, all the stuff that you'd expect. The alien resistance goes up. Oh, here's the good thing about it. Unlike the first Umbral ship that stepped away from the shield bypass, which was a stupid mistake, first off, they wouldn't be doing increased damage, they'd be trying to bypass the defenses because they'd be wanting to feed on the armor underneath. So it makes sense for them to bypass, not increase the damage to the shields, because that's just... it makes no sense, especially for the Umbral that we've known all this time. So it having the shield bypass, it makes sense, because it's returning to that proper Umbral that we've known all along. And at Mark 5, it has a 50% shield bypass. Not half bad. Right off the bat, I can say this, I'm not seeing a single thing that I disapprove of or dislike about it. First off, it doesn't apply stasis to itself when it gets hit. It doesn't become a rock, basically, and it can actually engage targets fairly reliably at close range to mid-range, because that's exactly what it fills, the role. What about everything else about it? Pardon me for a second while I yawn. 15%, 40%, and 50%. All at Mark 1, it's got relatively good modifiers for the armor-wise. Weapon-wise, well, you're going to have to wait until you get up towards Mk5 to be able to get up towards, what, 70% off the weapon? Yeah, the weapon weight. That ain't too bad. And you've got, like, basically no weight on your ablative stuff, because it's 75% off and the armor is 75% as well. So it's basically 70, 75, 75 across the board, and then 50% shield bypass. Resistance, it has the standard that we would expect: counter chain, counter ricochet, nebula resistance, and then the tiny amount of alien resistance, but full blight resistance. Okay. Let's go ahead and let's take it out and punch it in Planet Fleet real quick, so you can see exactly what it looks like, and I'm going to be nicknaming it and begin referring to it moving forwards as the Battle Beetle. You'll understand why in just a moment. Alright. Now, I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to kick that off. I want to show the animation first, while AI does its thing before I take control of it. And just like that, it's a hardened carapace, and it doesn't look half bad. I actually like how it looks. It's one ship that I can't give any complaints to or anything like that. It moves fairly well, it rotates fairly well, it behaves exactly like a cruiser does, except for, as you can see, it's massive. I mean, I actually think it's larger than even the Ajax. So I'll have to take a look at it, but I mean, it's ramping damage mixed with a decent amount of firepower, especially if you can get to Mark IV. You should be able to boost the damage of your weapon types a little bit more using fleet commanders and stuff like that, which will help out. I'm going to take it back to base, and I'm going to change something real quick. Alright, one thing I want to do really quickly is I want to drop an Ajax in with it, because I want to see the size comparison between the two ships. So let's quickly grab Ajax, and let's go back out. Alright. Actually, they're around the same size. The Ajax is just that little bit thinner, but longer. Whereas the Amarok, it's a big bulky boy. It can tank all the damage from its just general appearance. Oh, and that was a build I was messing with. I wanted to see what the cannon would look like on it. Honestly, the cannon was doing better on it than the Manifold Missile 2.0 was, so I actually stuck with it. That ain't half bad. Alright, back at the base once more. I just wanted to do that quick size comparison between the two. So, right off the bat, what do I have to say? Well, the animations for it aren't actually half bad. I actually like the fact that when it's moving about, it closes up essentially, and it turns it, and it more or less, it has a more hardened shell look to the exterior of the ship. And when it's just sitting still, it just kind of relaxes and opens up. It makes itself an easy target, which is actually pretty cool. So, aesthetic-wise, it gets an A+ from me. But then that's about it. Because aside from it potentially being a great auto farmer, because of how it behaves, you should have no issues being able to strap something like, I forgot the name of the cannon, it's the Paraxysm? Yeah, the Paraxysm. If you strap them to it, it'll have no issues hitting targets either, even the faster moving ones, because one thing I've been testing lately is the Paraxysm cannons in general. And I have to say, out of all of the Tier 8 weapons so far, the Paraxysm Cannon is my favorite unless I'm using Nova drivers on the Valrayvn, because it just doesn't miss. It can't miss, because it is an auto-aiming weapon, and the rounds, they automatically home in on the target. And they, as I stated, they just can't miss. So thankfully, it has that going for it. So what I'm going to do is I'm most likely going to refit it and change the weapons out and build a few more. And I may actually build a few auto fleets of them, because they are durable as can be. And to put it into the comparison to a Valrayvn real quick, One of my Valrayvns with the current fitting with the improper armor has 26,000 hit points, almost 28,000. However, improper fleet commander, so their health would be higher, whereas the Amarok has 43,000, and that's all with the level 1 armor. I've been farming up to level 3, and I'm pretty sure if I refit it enough, I could probably stuff the level 3 on it, and I'll probably start refitting them and start building more of them. Just auto farm Altairian targets, because that shield bypass, and especially if I can get a few Blight variants of the Paraxysm, that will come in handy, especially when auto farming. So, for anyone looking for a ship that's just going to be able to do most of the stuff that you need, look no further, the Amarok will be the ship for you. However, in PvP, this is where it's going to be the downfall. First off, it has no stasis resistance, and because the stasis resistors are limited to Altairian only, you have absolutely no stasis resistance. So if you start getting hit by it, well, theoretically, if an enemy pilots their battleships right, tier 7 at that, they could kite you and just destroy you, and you would never be able to catch up. Because when you get dropped by like 80% of your speed, there's not much you can do because, well, that's how the game just works. You've got a maximum ship speed of 740 forwards. With these thrusters, you get dropped down to 20% of that. Most battleships with thrusters can move faster than that 20%, so be very careful when you're going about because they can be ambushed like that. But if you're looking for an auto farmer, it should be the ship for you. The ramping damage mixed with the other stuff, if you use the Paraxysm Cannon, it should be exceptionally good. And unlike with the Ajax, where I just don't like the ship at all because of how it's focused on defense only, I'm most likely going to build a fleet of Amaroks just because I have no issues building more of them because they actually, to me, look like a good ship. They don't scream overly useless and stuff like that. They seem like they're going to be able to go in, get the job done, do exactly what they need to do. And because I see them as great auto farmers, I'll be able to more or less leave them be while I start doing other things. And the other thing is, due to the high amount of durability that they have, as well as what they will have compared to the Valrayvns, I don't think that they'll have issues farming for long periods of time, especially because I'm going with the Proxium build. If I go with someone like Victoria, I can get the Blight bonus damage when I go to the value and increase each of their damage by an additional 10% base value, which will stack with the up to, 50% at Elite from their Overdrive? I think it's 50% for the Bloodthirst. 150? Yeah, 50%. So you would technically get a 60% damage boost with the 4 weapons. So they'd be doing 6,000, 9,000. They'd be doing close to 10,000 damage per second. So that I have no issues with. And the amount of health and armor they have, they should be able to easily close down on target. So, in short, the Amarok will be able to more or less close in and destroy something like the Valrayvns, because they may have plenty of damage, but so long as you have level 3 carapaces, high level armor to resist the damage, and even if they're using the Blight version, well, because it's ablative, it will actually be affected by the resistance of the ship, and, well, you've got good resistance right off the bat against that. However, that's just theory crafting, and we'll have to actually test it. But that's going to be it. I'm going to start refitting some stuff, start building some more of them, and more or less playtest them, and start gathering up stuff for the mark upgrade targets. And, well, go ahead and share your thoughts. What do you guys think of the Amarok so far? How many of you have built it? How many of you have fitted it? Do you see it as a good auto farming ship, a good PvP ship, or anything like that? If you've already taken out the PvP and some of the issues I may have already brought up have happened, well, go ahead and push it towards the development team because, well, it's up to them to add the content to make the game more enjoyable, so quality changes could also be seen as such. But that's going to do it, everybody. Happy hunting out there in the void. Be safe, and as always, I'll see you in the next video.